I've thought about giving up this whole YouTube thing more times than I care to admit. The tech is overwhelming. Editing is exhausting for me. And some days it feels impossible just to show up. But I keep coming back to my why. I started this channel to chronicle my journey living with Lewy Body Dementia, to give it a face, to give it a voice, and maybe even a little hope. It's about staying connected, finding a purpose, and showing others that they're not alone and that life doesn't end after a diagnosis like this. This is never going to go viral. I don't expect any of my videos to ever go viral. But that's not why I created this channel, and that's not why I'm creating these videos. So in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I've almost walked away, the struggles I have managing content creation and dementia at the same time, the changes I'm making to try to make this a little bit more simple, and to focus more on my why and having a little more fun. And I hope that this will resonate with some of you. If you've been in a position where you've felt like quitting, like walking away from something, whether it's YouTube or something else, I hope you put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, because we're all journeying this path together of trying to figure out what we want to do and how we want to do it. It's not always easy. So if you're interested in learning more about Lewy body dementia and kind of what it's like to live on the inside, I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, I hope you'll hit the like button, because, it's important for me. I don't care so much about the YouTube algorithm and all that, but it's nice to hear from people who may be listening, that the video and the content resonates with you and that it may be meaningful to you in some way. So as I said, the reason that I started this channel was really very simple. I wanted to create a space where I could share my journey and talk to people about what it's like to live with Lewy body dementia and, dementia in general. The struggles, the reality, the joys, the fun, and how to live life well after a diagnosis of dementia. And what I found myself quickly doing was getting bogged down in YouTube videos. I was watching all the videos on how to create content. And so I was watching videos on lighting, which I'm never going to get right. That's just a reality. On sound, on editing, and how to organize content and what programs you should use to increase your clicks and all that stuff. And as I was watching more and more of those videos, I'm saying to myself, I'm never going to beat these guys. For one thing, it's not my style, and it's not the audience that I'm trying to reach. I do want to give a big, a shout out to some of the creators that I've started watching that have really changed my mindset about what it is I want to do and how I want to do it. Ty Myers, Stephen Thompson, Kevin Colby, Rob the Maritimer. These guys are talking about keeping things simple, and making things more enjoyable in the process, just talking to people like you would normally talk to anyone. And that's been kind of life-changing for me. because I find myself getting stuck in my head too often and worrying about the script because I was scripting everything, because I was afraid that I was going to forget things because that's dementia. I don't know. And so I was scripting everything and then trying to figure out the teleprompter and trying to make that work and trying to do the setup and trying to get everything right and get everything perfect. And the more steps I added to this process, the worse it got. I wasn't able to be myself. I wasn't able to even think because I was getting so caught up with all the mechanics of what it is to supposedly be a successful YouTuber, which I don't really care about. So when I realized that I don't really care about that stuff, I'm never going to build a business. I'm already retired. I don't need to make any more money. I mean, making money is great. Don't get me wrong. But I don't plan to ever make money off this channel. And monetization is not my thing. It never was. So every time I start watching videos about SEOs and monetization, it's just like, okay, but then none of that applies to me. So I've really tried to figure out, okay, what is my niche or niche, I suppose. But I'm from northern New England and we call it a niche. My niche is very specific and it doesn't fit into the how-tos of, talking about AI or content creation or any of the other, how-tos that blow up all over YouTube. So because my niche is so specific, it's very small. If you think about it, people living with dementia, caregivers, perhaps medical people who might be interested in learning what it's like, perhaps what their patients are going through. Maybe folks who are associated with assisted living facilities, they may be interested in this content. Somebody who may be interested in watching somebody's journey, as they go through things. That niche is pretty small. So I'm not going to get millions of subscribers and all of that. And I'm okay with that. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing from YouTube creators is saying that, you must monetize, you must make a lot of money, you must build your brand, build your business, do all these things. And that's great for those people who want to do that. And I'm not knocking that at all. It's just not for me. And the more I got sucked down into that rabbit hole, I was just getting further and further frustrated because none of it was what I was looking for. And so those particular content creators that I just talked about really spoke to me about just speaking from the heart, talking about what's important to you and learning from your mistakes and moving on. And hopefully people will want to see that. And if they don't, then no harm, no foul. For me, as my middle school kids used to tell me, the struggle is real. Time is a factor for me. I only have so much time left on this planet. And, I want to spend it wisely. I don't want to spend it doing something that I hate to do or that has no value. And time is very difficult for me too, because I only have specific times during the day when I'm really clear enough cognitively to be able to do the kind of things that you need to be able to do, to even set up a simple recording and make a recording. But there are more steps involved when you really start breaking it down. Those of you who do content creation, you'll know what I'm talking about. But for somebody living with dementia and they have difficulty already with executive functioning, of putting things in order, of remembering to do certain things, settings and all of those things, it becomes even more taxing. So, I have limited bandwidth where I can do these sorts of things. One of the things that, I find, and I've seen other folks talk about this a little bit, is you don't let people know that you're doing these videos, that you're creating this channel. And I took that to heart, and I haven't really mentioned it, even really to my family. My wife knows that I've created this channel and that I'm doing this. But she is of my generation, so she kind of poo-poos this whole thing, and she doesn't really see the value in it, and she supports what I'm doing because I'm doing it. She doesn't support it because she thinks it's a good idea. In fact, she thinks it's not a good idea. So I have to kind of work around that as well. She's concerned that it's taking up too much of my bandwidth to do this, and that I'm going to deplete what limited bandwidth I have left by doing these sorts of things. I counter by saying that doing this keeps my brain active. I continue to try to learn new things, which is always good for your brain health. I try not to overtax it, but I do keep trying. But a lack of support is also a struggle in trying to maintain this channel and maintain what it is I'm trying to do. So there are lots of reasons to quit, between the tech and the logistics of it all. Sometimes even just coming up with legitimate content. I think I have lots of ideas, but trying to get them all down and trying to figure everything out is a struggle. So there are lots of reasons to quit. But I keep going back to my why. And there's no other channel like this on YouTube that I can find. And if you can find it, please let me know. There are lots of channels that are created by caregivers about what they and their loved one going through a form of dementia is going through. But it's usually from the caregiver's perspective of what the person living with dementia is going through. Even if the person living with dementia is on screen, the majority of the talking and explaining is done by the caregiver. There are lots of channels, I think of Teepa Snow and others who do an outstanding job of providing support and information for caregivers about how to deal with or how to love someone and care for someone who is living with dementia. But I have yet to find a channel where the person who is living with dementia is trying to share their journey, as difficult as that is. So it's unique. And I think in that uniqueness comes an opportunity to share with other people, an opportunity to talk to others about what they may be going through. And I think that there's value in it. And I think that there is a lot of hope in that. At least I think so. Another why, I guess, is I need a purpose. When I received my diagnosis of dementia, I lost my job. I was the executive director of a statewide superintendents association. I worked intimately with legislators, with superintendents of schools, with state leaders, national leaders. I testified in front of state legislatures. I provided trainings. I was kind of at the pinnacle of my career. And when I received my diagnosis, I was done that day. So I for someone like me to just stop working was devastating. So I kind of look at what I'm doing now with this channel as recreating, to some extent, my work. I focus a lot on advocacy now. I work with the National Council of Dementia Minds, the only organization that was specifically created by people living with dementia and is for people living with dementia. And they do a lot of work in the advocacy area of reaching out to legislative bodies and educational facilities, assisted living facilities, higher education institutions, medical associations, to provide them with more information from the perspective of those of us living with dementia. So I've begun working with them, and it's incredibly rewarding work. And from that work and writing my blog, that I came to the idea of, well, if people enjoy our trainings, which they do through NCDM, then maybe, and to back up, what they enjoy about those trainings is the fact that they're hearing from people who are living with dementia. I thought to myself, well, maybe if I started putting out some videos on YouTube about what it's like to live with dementia and to share my journey and to share some of the insights that I've received from other people, that might be of benefit to people, and that they might find value in that. So for me, this is my new work. I'm a lifelong Catholic, and I believe very strongly in vocations. I was discerning the priesthood before I met my wife and realized that my vocation was marriage and children and not the priesthood. But vocation and calling has always been a very large part of who I am. And for me, this gives me a purpose. This, I feel, is my calling. It keeps my mind active, and it keeps my spirit hopeful. So that's why I want to continue. And that has been my why right from the very beginning. So the decision I've made, or some of the decisions I've made in order to be able to keep going with all of this, is I need to simplify everything. I keep going back to the KISS principle. The original KISS principle is keep it simple, stupid. But I don't need any more negative self-talk in my head. So my KISS principle is keep it simple and stressless. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to employ this KISS principle. I'm stop trying to script every word. I'm trying to focus more on the intro, maybe the outro, and then bullet points in between. So if you see me looking off, sometimes I'm just gathering my thoughts. Sometimes I'm looking at my notes. But trying to do a teleprompter, that just doesn't work for me. I did a lot of testifying in front of the legislature and committees. And oftentimes, they give you a couple of minutes. You've got to provide them this long written testimony, and then they give you a couple of minutes to give them a summary. They don't want you to read from the thing. I got used to being able to do that, and then they would fire questions. And, you'd get the Democrats would give you one set of questions because they want to lead you in this direction, and the Republicans would give you one set of questions to lead you in this direction. And my job was just to educate, to try to stay here in the middle without taking either side, which was not always easy depending on the issue. So I got used to that kind of thinking. So just reading from a script feels very foreign to me. I'm going to give this a shot and we'll see how it goes. I've decided that I'm just going to sit down and talk and just kind of share from my bulleted points what I'm thinking about and how that relates to what it is I'm going through. And then the biggest thing for me, I think, is to try to keep the editing simple. Currently I use Descript to edit my videos. I'm actually trying to record right into it so that I don't have to upload video and do all of those extra steps. I'm hoping that that will make it a little bit easier. Still trying to learn layouts and templates and all of that stuff. But what I'm finding is that I'm over editing sometimes. And sometimes I'm relying too much on the AI part of it to do the editing for me. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. So I'm learning, trying to learn as I go along. But the editing, I've got to try to simplify that because that's one of the hardest parts for me. And it takes up the most cognitive bandwidth to do. And the other thing is to chunk out my time. I do a pretty good job of setting up a content creation calendar, if you will, and trying to stick to that. And that's been pretty successful. My problem is because other people don't value what I'm doing as much as I value what I'm doing, my time tends to get taken over by other things. So I have to kind of work around that. So I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. So I'm not sure if this is going to work either. It's going to work for me, and I hope that it works for those people who watch. I'd like to think so. I do know that no matter what, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep at this, and I'm going to keep going for as long as I can. And I hope that it provides value to people. So if this video interested you in any way, I hope you'll like it. It means a lot to me personally. And if you want to hear more about what it is I'm going through with Lewy body and my thoughts on dementia, and to some extent, what I'm going through, not only in my dementia journey, but kind of in my faith and life journey as well, as I'm grappling with all of this living with dementia. I hope that you'll subscribe. I hope that you'll come back and watch again. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of your care partners, and just remember, no matter what, don't quit.